Now moving on to the next segment this evening, I would now like to call on stage Professor Vidyanand Jha from IIM Calcutta. He teaches postgraduate students and working managers from corporate government and non-government sectors from India and abroad on organization behavior, organization theory, management of creativity and innovation and knowledge management, and a lot of other subjects which I'm sure I could go on for ages and ages on. We're truly honored by his presence today, and the audience has been waiting with bated breath for his session. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so a very good evening to all of you. It's a Friday evening. I'm sure you have better things to do. So I trekked almost other side of the city, so I better make sense to myself and you. I was thinking about it. Firstly, you will see that there is no PowerPoint slide. That is something which has remained constant about me because, say around 20 years back, beginning of PowerPoints, I read an article on the internet called "PowerPoint Makes You Dumb." And I believe that actually. So I have never practiced after that into using PowerPoints. Why the article was saying that PowerPoint makes you dumb? Because you are exposed to so much information for such a short time that actually nobody can remember it all. Okay. If you want, we can do a quiz on whatever Adani connects. I actually thought it was a description, Adani connects. But anyway, it's the name of the company, Adani connects. So basically, I'm not using a PowerPoint, but I have in mind what I'm trying to tell you. What also happens that I often get bored with whatever I tell people. Okay. So I try to bring newness because you will not know. I will know what I have said before. I was thinking about it. Your CIOs, is there leadership among CIOs? Okay. Or a larger question I'm trying to raise is there leadership in IT industry itself? Okay. Or did it kind of become whatever it could become without specific leaders? Okay. I mean, Narayan Murthy is there, you can, throw a Mohandas Pai, or not a Mohandas Pai, maybe whoever, Nandan Nilekani and so on. But the question is, suppose these gentlemen were not there, okay. Would IT industry have come or not come? I'm not trying to tell you anything new actually. There is a German word called Zeitgeist. Okay. Zeitgeist roughly translates as the spirit of the times. What it says that this worldview says that we basically put too much emphasis on individuals, but there are certain kind of forces at any point in time which give rise to a phenomenon. Okay, and people stumbled upon this when they thought about in the olden days, say, two discoveries taking part in very disparate parts of the world. Okay, and olden days, if you realize, there was no internet, there was no so unknown to each other, people were actually discovering the same thing. Now, it was therefore proposed that it was not about those specific individuals. Okay, it was about development of science at that point in time. So one can argue that actually, given the way the world developed, because do you think the way the world is becoming hyper-nationalistic today, could Infosys have entered, American market in today's time? Maybe not, okay. Maybe, 40 years back, beginnings of globalization, 30 years back, it was easier for them. And that is where it was not something which, Narayan Murthy or his bunch of, founders did. It was at some level being in the right place at the right time, okay. So one impulse which I have is to just dismiss the idea that leadership exists, okay. But then, they called me, some of you came in the beginning and said, oh, we came to listen to you on leadership, so I should tell you something. So I should attempt to tell you something. Second issue is that, okay, if leadership exists, what are the elements of this leadership? Okay, so within the organization, I can talk about this, that leadership would mean perhaps in my vocabulary what we call strategic skills. Okay. So if you realize, for example, the presentation which people were making, they were saying you can actually think of things about 20 years hence. Okay. Now to be able to think about 20 years hence, that is essentially the strategic thinking. And to a crowd of CIOs, I think it still makes sense for me to talk about it, because when you join as a junior manager, and much as I really wish there was a board, because I'm a chalk and board person really. So if you realize, if you are at the junior level, and so think of a 3x3 matrix, and I'm also asking you to think of a 3x3 matrix, because the joke is that management teachers are too dumb and they always make 2x2 matrix. So I want to actually disprove this theory. So if you have a 3x3 matrix, on one side you have, say, skills, technical skill, human skill, and strategic skill. On the other side you have junior management, middle management, and top management. So what do you require most for the junior management? Okay. Anybody would like to tell me, out of these three skills? Technical skills. You should know how to do your job. Okay. Should you have any human skills? And you should know when two bosses are fighting, how to get out of that. You should know what your boss wants, whether he likes his coffee or her coffee with the sugar or without sugar. So some things you should know. What about strategic skills? Okay. At a junior level, do you require strategic skills? So there are people who are saying to some extent, there are also people who are saying not required. Could we have a mic going around, please? Okay. So could we just circulate a mic and listen to some of the people? Yeah. So.
You're not expected to have that at the junior level. They don't really go for the strategic decisions at that level. Well, when we started, we never had that scope also. Maybe over a period of time, we had to have those qualities.
So it's a Friday evening, as I said, a very somber time at some level. You have to face your home people now for 2 days, So basically, if you realize, do you ever worry about what is the purpose of your life? Okay. So what is the purpose of your life? Let me repeat it slowly, maybe it didn't sink in, okay. So, coming to ITC Royal Bengal, having a free or quasi-free dinner, on a Friday evening, a few drinks. Is that the purpose of your life? What is the purpose of your life? Do you think about it? Say so, the mic is you, that's why let me repeat the question to you. If we met in, say a railway bogie, in other public places don't talk to each other, but say a railway compartment, if we meet, how will you introduce yourself? Okay. How do you introduce yourself to others? Okay. Typically, what do you say? Okay. So you say, where are you from? And then? So what do? You see? You do not say, that I'm Chunnu Munnu ka chacha, or I'm, whatever, Pisima of, cookie or something. You never say that, So I'm just trying to make a point to you that your primary identity as of today is your work identity. Okay. And how many hours do you spend at work or thinking about work? So do this maths. Remove the sleeping hours and the maintenance function of your whatever, eating, brushing your teeth, etc. If you realize majority of your time goes into your work, okay. So if there is a disconnect, therefore, if you don't see the larger picture, you'll actually not have a purpose for your own life, At the junior level, how it would translate it, that primarily you will become a mercenary actually, okay. And as you grow up, in terms of age, so let me just give you reference of a story actually. This story I'm very fond of, and this gentleman called Kashinath Singh. He writes in Hindi. He lives in Banaras. Kashinath Singh arguably is one of the best short story writers anywhere in the world, actually. So Kashinath Singh, this is a story called Sukh. Sukh, I don't know, I mean, you are all Indian languages kind of, chaps, so I would not like to translate Sukh for you, but Sukh could be very inadequately translated as happiness. It's much more than happiness, but for whatever purposes, Sukh, So in the story, what would happen, that there's a clerk who every day goes from his home to his office in the morning and comes back in the evening, walks both ways. It's he has been doing it for years. He's close to retirement age. And then one day what he would see is that in the evening time, at one corner, he will see the sun setting. And he would really like this, the sight of the sun setting. And then it suddenly would strike him that the sun was setting there all this time, all these years. He never had the time to have a look at it, So I'm just pointing out to you that when it gets to you, purpose of life, that is variable. To some it could get, I suddenly remembered a Woody Allen movie actually. I don't know how many of you saw this movie in which there is a young guy, less than 10-year-old boy actually. And he for the first time learns about black holes and universe and so on. And when he thinks about black holes, he says, what's the point? Because if everything is going to get into the black hole. So I don't know whether it would hit you, the purpose of life, when you're younger or with, as it happened in the Kashinath Singh story when you're older. But idea is that even as a junior manager, if you have a strategic kind of idea, a larger picture, big picture, you are more engaged, connected, make sense of your own life, etc. In a competitive market, I also would say that in a competitive market, who knows best about the customer changes, customer preferences changing? CEO or the frontline employee? Frontline employee. So actually as an organization, I often advocate this, I've become a great advocate of this, that one of the biggest places to learn for an organization is individual transactions with the customers. If you just pay attention there, if you once in a while listen to your frontline employees, you don't need consultants. It's almost the saying, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. So listening to one frontline employee a day will keep the consultants away. So essentially, therefore, if your frontline people have the larger picture, then they can figure out any market information or customer information, the importance of that, and they can report it back to you. So that was that. In the second level, when we come to middle managers, what is most important for them? Which skill? So amongst the technical, human and strategic, which becomes most important for them? So, because now you are not only your work, it's a team of people, etc. So that is the most important thing. And then a bit of maybe technical kind of skills, a bit of strategic skills. Let me point out to you that this whole notion that you will do supervision or leadership or you will become manager of people because you know something better than them, that is gone now. In fact, think of any normal organization, and let me point out to you that at some point we were trying to do some work with a local organization called Coal India, and we realized that Coal India had close to 250 plus specialities. So when I say speciality, say Rajbhasha person would be different than mining engineer, would be different than civil engineer, and so on. Now, anybody heading Coal India, do you think he can know or she can know about all these 250 things? It's impossible, It's humanly kind of impossible given a so complex world which we live in. So the idea, therefore, is that it's not that you will know the same things more that your subordinate knows, but you have to figure out a role for yourself, what we will do for them. So anyway, that was the second middle manager part. And then top managers actually ideally should have more strategic kind of skills, a bit of human whatever kind of skills, and a bit of kind of technology kind of skills. Now in this schema also, if we talk about you as CIOs now, I don't know, C part tells me that you are top management, but are you top management or, so you're part of top management team, isn't it? So you should now develop your leadership skills, because I define leadership skills as strategic kind of skills. Now, I think 2010 actually, Business Today asked some people who are leadership experts that, what do you think in 2020 would be 3 qualities which leaders would need to have? Now, simplest rule about these kind of prediction games is that if you think you're going to live that long, don't make that prediction, okay? Okay. So I somehow, got kind of, convinced by them, and maybe I wanted to see my name in the print and so on. So I predicted actually 3 things. Interestingly, whatever I predicted at one level in 2010, if you predicted about 2020, it's a very risky game because 2020 turned out to be totally different. Nobody had, even in 2019, any idea about how 2020 is going to turn out. But the 3 things which I had put my vote on, let me just share that with you. First thing which I had shared my vote with was something called power of visioning actually. And let me just point out to you, I don't know, how many of you have watched a movie called Jab We Met? So there is a famous dialogue of Kareena Kapoor Khan which says, "Acha acha sochne se acha acha hota hai." Okay. There are many versions of this. There is a Rhonda Byrne book actually called Secret written. Paulo Coelho actually talks about it. Now, do you really think that this happens? So how many of you are going to visualize that there are gulab jamuns for dessert tonight? And it will appear, okay. We can have a poll actually, how many of you think there are going to be gulab jamuns. But do you think merely because you think that there would be gulab jamuns would appear? So a lot of people actually are working on this. In fact, if you keep track of economics Nobels, in economics, multiple Nobels have now gone to people who work on market sentiments, role of expectations in shaping reality, and so on. So one part what we realize is that if you think something, that could lead to something. Not would lead to, could lead to something. Second, what we realize, in fact, now that I have gone into movies, do you remember a movie called Black? Sanjay Leela Bhansali, okay. And in Black, actually, there were 2 sisters. And this is a quiz question, actually. I could have a reward for you if you identify the other actor. Rani Mukherjee, everybody would recognize. But who was the sister? Anybody can tell me the name of the actor? Okay, so this is what I expect from Calcutta, a film of, a city of movie buffs, okay. So I feel, and mind you, it's not only you. Actually, once I remember a conversation with a taxi driver. One of the Italian actors had passed away, and he actually gave me a 5-minute talk on the Italian actor. So it's a movie literate city, and so in that basically movie, one of the cribs of Nandana Devsen's character is that why do my parents always actually give more importance to the sister? Sister is blind actually, okay. And this is a non-blind person, she can see. So parents, for whatever reason, they are actually, I often say that mothers are the original communists because they want to take from everybody according to their capacity and give to everybody according to their need actually. So anyway, parents pay more attention to the sister who's blind. And this other sister feels very angry about it. Something similar happened to the discipline of psychology in 1980s, okay. Basically, much of 20th century psychology was about people who were unhappy and why they were unhappy. So there was a gentleman called Martin Seligman. Seligman started thinking that all this while we looked at people who are unhappy and why they are unhappy, why don't we look at people who are happy and figure out why they are happy? Okay. So he started so this whole change is known as positive organization behavior or positive psychology. So people started looking at positive traits. One of this, the power of visioning actually comes there and much before. In fact, in 1960s actually, there were two different experiments done. One experiment was in US schools that they asked the teachers, they took first two groups of students who were both equally matched in terms of IQ. And about one group, they said that this is a brighter group. About the other, they said this is the, average kind of group. The experiment was that actually curriculum was similar, IQ levels were similar, teachers were similar. So what would be the outcome after 6 months? After 6 months, what they realized that the group which was termed as being brighter, they performed better. Okay. And then in the debrief to the experiment, what they realized that the teachers told them that they conveyed higher expectations to those kids who were told to them to be brighter. So from this, again, role of expectation in shaping reality, people started studying, that if you think something, something could happen, that this is what I come back to. So my point is that nothing big happens without thinking big. If you think big, it may not happen. That also may come true. Okay. So, but the idea is that think of mathematical expressions, if and only if, double if actually. So, double if condition is without thinking anything big, nothing big can happen. And that is what is the idea of power of visioning. Now, I thought about this, that for a group like yours, where does power of visioning come? Okay, because I often joke that in India, the corporate culture is lick and kick, lick upwards and kick downwards. So basically in this kind of corporate culture, by the time you have come to the place you have come, you have learned how to say yes to everything the big boss says, okay. And you have also, learned which are the places, even if the big boss is iffy, what do you actually need to say, okay. And this is not very difficult. I mean, you can figure out with everybody. In fact, I had a meeting with my TTA scheduled either today or on Monday. So she called me up and said, so I can meet you today, but I can also meet you on Monday. So I asked her, what are you asking? That can you meet me on Monday? Is that what you want? So she said, no, I can come today. At around 12, I again called her up. She said, sir, I'm sorry, I had to go away somewhere. So basically I'm saying this was a very non-hierarchical situation and this TTA is not that important to me. But I'm sure with your bosses, you can much easily figure out what they want or what they do not want. So I'm saying that you have come to a stage where most of the time actually you have learned to say what other people want you to say. Okay. Now, how do you kind of, start coming out of that? And I'm just thinking aloud, is that at all possible? If it's possible, what are the ways? Okay. I would think maybe if you talk to people who are unlike you, okay, who bring in different perspectives, maybe you get this sense. Plus, I would also like to point out to you, it's a Buddhist notion called anik or anicca, as it would anikya, anicca, as it would called in Pali, which is about impermanence of everything. Okay. So think about your boss. Okay, how long would your boss last? Okay, how long would you last? Okay. And that is where I bring a great kind of value to standing for what you really think is right, okay. And that's why one way is the ability to say, put forth your views. And remember, what you also need to learn is how do you put across your views, okay. Because it's not that you should kind of, put across your views and then off with your head, because you need your head, on top of your body actually. But essentially, that will take me into something called framing, okay. How do you frame your, so one framing which I often kind of advocate is something called sandwich framing, okay. That even if you have to criticize somebody, you first start with the praise, that I can see this is a good proposal, there are so many good things happening. Bring in the criticism. Again, actually end with a praise, saying that a great leader like you would be able to do it, an experienced person like you can see it. So say whatever you want, but say it as the ad used to be, जोर का धक्का धीरे से लगे, okay. So जोर का धक्का जोर से लगाने में विश्वास मत रखिए, ठीक है. So essentially, one thing which I was telling you about your attitude towards kind of, thinking big. Second is, actually, where would your ideas come from, okay? And that is where I also find that people like you, if they have not, kept in touch with the world, okay, they are very tired people. They don't have any new ideas, okay. It's a just set job which they do and then they kind of go back, okay. So I would say that whatever be your mode of consumption, whether you are reading, whether you are watching videos, whether you are, listening to podcast, you could choose your own medium, but definitely access or consume content which is not in your own domain, okay. So, for example, IT CIOs, they anyway have to know about IT, but also learn what is happening to economy, also learn what is happening to, science for that matter, or historically what happened to things and so on and so forth. So, access content on other disciplines, because history of creativity tells us that actually most of the time people don't end up discovering totally new things. In fact, there is a story attributed to a Hindi novelist and short story writer called Premchand. Okay. Premchand used to edit a journal called Saraswati. So, sorry, Hans actually, not Saraswati. So somebody in those days sent a letter along with his contribution to Premchand that this is my totally original piece of contribution. So Premchand wrote back to him saying that I can find at least one place from which you have copied, okay. So that guy was very angry. He said, no, it's totally Maulik Rachna as he had written in Hindi. So Premchand said, you copied from the dictionary, okay. So basically the idea is that, many things, creative thinking is about rearrangement of things, not totally a new thing actually. So first thing is power of visioning. You need to think big. And in fact, I was trying to think of examples as I came here. We are sitting in the city where Rabindranath breathed his last, not too kind of long back, his anniversaries and so on have passed. Rabindranath, if you know about him, what was his education? Actually, in a joke, a very dark joke, Rabindranath started in this country the tradition of school dropouts starting universities, okay. But anyway, that was a dark part of the joke. But if you think about him, he thought that there should be a particular kind of education which people need to have. So even as a school dropout, he could imagine, he could think about that, and he established the university, okay. What we are able to do or not able to do with that university, that's a totally altogether kind of story, and I will not go there. But this is the power of visioning, Power of visioning is, say, whatever, say, the speech which Jawaharlal Nehru gave on 14th night, with or without Sengol, I'll not get there, but the speech which he made actually, it's about that, that he imagined a kind of India, which would be industrially kind of, very, forward, and it will actually have people who are educated and, productive, and so on and so forth. So one thing is power of visioning actually. Now, next thing is that my vote went for the second kind of thing, that actually only by having a power of visioning. I don't know, any of you who were like early Doordarshan sitcom watchers, Mungeri Lal ke Haseen Sapne, anybody? Okay. So basically, Mungeri Lal is a guy who dreams big, but then things don't happen. Actually, at the risk of being kind of declared, unpatriot, etc., let me say this, that in an international context, that is the impression foreigners have of Indians, because Indians are very articulate, talk great deal, but then nothing happens, okay. So basically they will say Indians can talk big, but then they can't do things. We think that the Westerners, they can't see interlinkages, they are very narrow thinkers, but then haven't. So that is difference in way of thinking. In fact, if you get interested, there is a book by Kishore Mahbubani on Asian ways of thinking and so on, which says that our thinking is more holistic. We see more connections and so on. So second thing is therefore, that actually it's not only a question of your thinking big. Because except for a small Lala's shop, okay, and even in a Lala's shop, there is a proverbial Ramu who runs around, okay. So except for a very small outfit, nothing can be done alone actually. Bigger the vision which you have, more people you need to, interact with. So the idea is that it's not only you who actually dreams big. You have to sell those dreams to other people, actually. And there are various ways of doing it. I don't want to go there, but if you went into formal leadership literature, they talk about transactional leadership, where the boss will say, you do this for me, I'll do that for you. They also talk about transformational leadership, Again, another icon from this city, and I'm very sad actually that as I grow, I realize that our national icons are now becoming regional icons. So somebody like Subhash Babu, when he said, "Tum mujhe khoon do and main tumhe azadi dunga," he was not saying that actually I'll give you more income. He was not saying everybody will get job. He was saying, "Tum mujhe khoon do, main tumhe azadi dunga." Such an abstract thing. Okay. What is azadi if you think about it? And to sell azadi as a product or idea or service, how difficult it would have been. Blood is very real, okay. You can't see azadi. You can see blood very clearly actually. So it was what today we would call transformational leadership, that the leader promises something which is more transcendental, which actually develops you, develops the leader also actually. Leader also does not remain unaffected. So the second thing, what I was talking to you about, is the idea that whatever vision you have, you need to persuade others to buy into that vision actually. I was thinking about examples, I gave you certain examples because by today's standards, even the number of people Subhash Babu was able to gather around him is heroic. If you see Azad Hind Fauj, how many people kind of came to him. Now, in general, how do you become more persuasive? Okay. So let me just leave you with a brief idea there that one of the first things to be persuasive is to establish your credibility. People just don't listen to anybody. Okay. People listen to other people who they believe in some ways. And who are the people who we believe in? So first thing is, if we think that this person knows about what they are talking, okay, they have a knowledge of that, then we believe in that. Okay. So typically people believe in experts, or so in any situation, if you have expertise, put it on the table. If you don't have expertise, at least have sustained interest. Even tell people that you have sustained interest. So first thing is your knowledge. Second is people don't listen to any knowledgeable people. So because otherwise we would have all listened to, good salespeople, because all the good salespeople know much more than us about their products or service. They are more knowledgeable. But why we don't listen to them? Because we think that they are trying to benefit us or benefit their organization. Themselves, okay. So next thing is that people judge your intentions, So you must kind of communicate good intentions. Now that's very difficult actually. I don't know if you have done this, but I'm told, I have never seen it, that in Bada Bazaar apparently there is a shop called Sabse Faltu Chai Ki Dukaan, okay. Or in Kanpur, that shop I have visited, tells you a great deal that I have not seen things in Calcutta, but I have seen things in Kanpur, okay. So one can theorize about that itself. In Kanpur, they have a sweet shop called Thagu Ke Laddu, okay. Cheaters Laddus, okay. And their slogan, in fact, they are marketing experts. Their slogan is, "Aisa koi saga nahi, jisko humne thaga nahi." Okay. There is nobody who's related by blood to me who have not cheated. So the idea is, if I have cheated my blood relatives, what am I going to do to you? Cheat you, okay. But for the record, they make actually good laddus. So they are just trying to separate themselves from the market. Because in the market, everybody is saying Shuddha Deshi Ghee Ke Laddu. So they are saying, if those guys are Shuddha Deshi Ghee Ke Laddu, then we are the cheaters. Okay. So basically the idea being there, that you realize that intentions are very difficult to communicate. And first time round, everybody, in fact, the famous Hindi movie dialogue, "Ye sab kuch tumhare bhale ke liye hi hai, beta aur beti," okay. So all the salesmen will say that, okay, that it's for your own good that we are saying this. They are not saying what they are going to make out of it. So the second thing which you realize is that typically your intentions become clear to people either through their earlier interactions with you or by recommendations, testimonials from similar others. So you say, I have not worked with you, but I worked with one of your colleagues or known people, and you can check from them about me. So second is intentions. Third is personality. How good or bad you come across as a person, okay. How are you dressed properly? Do you hold eye contact? Do you smile at people? So I don't know, how many of you have ever got cheated in life? You reflect on this. The people who cheated you would be very pleasant as persons, okay. So they smile at people, hold eye contact, and that's how they, in fact, can win your trust, so to say. So the third part, which goes on to build your credibility, is your personality, and fourth part is something very amorphous called your character, okay. That what is the reputation which you are carrying about, which goes around, and in fact, think about it. I'll separately talk about it, a leadership trait which kind of, troubles me quite a lot these days. But essentially, people judge your character based on your long-term behavior, okay. So, as the movie title goes, that we know what you did last summer. People really know what you did last summer, okay. It goes around, okay. So therefore, you better do good things, okay. So these four things, your knowledge, your intentions, your personality, and your character, they go on to build your credibility. After that, you need to use logic to build arguments, to answer to people with data and so on. So then you can convince people. I need to talk for a minute about the kind of world we live in. The kind of world we live in is characterized as a post-truth world, actually. That basically there are lots of people going around saying lots of things. In fact, one university of which we are all students is WhatsApp University. So basically there are so many forwards we are getting every day, etc. So how do you know what is a fact and what is not a fact? Okay. Problem is that it's difficult to figure out in many situations, and that is where the least which you can do is to share your sources with others. Okay. Saying that I heard this thing here, or I read here, or I got my data from here, then people know how much to make sense or not make sense of whatever you are saying. So through the use of data, use of logic, use of examples, you build argument, use logic. Now, only logic is not actually enough to persuade people, to convince people. Because think about it, Swachh Bharat, does it make logical sense? Of course, it always has, okay. But then how many people actually throw things on the road still, or care about their private property more than the public property actually? So numbers still are large, okay. So what you realize that actually it's not only logic, or let me frame it other way around. Other way of framing would be that do we always do what is logically good for us? Okay. So how many of you, for example, go for a morning or evening walk, or eat healthy and so on and so forth? So what you would realize that there is always a knowing-doing gap. People know what are the right things to do, but they still may not do it. So that is where the last thing which you require in your being more persuasive is to use emotions or emotional appeal. Okay. Now, one part of using emotional appeal is to frame things in a way that saying that it's not only a good thing for in general, it's also good for you. In fact, there is a saying in Gujarati, or there is a phrase in Gujarati called "Mare shun," what is in it for me? So you need to answer what is in it for the person you are trying to convince. How will they benefit by whatever you are trying to propose? There are also other ways of using emotional appeal. One is to talk in what is called rhetorical language. Rhetorical language is raising your pitch and talking with that pitch. Typically in rhetorical language, anybody who knows what is a rhetorical question, questions for which there is only one answer, right answer. So if I say, shouldn't we all respect our mothers and fathers? Yes, okay. So typically people who are able to use emotional appeal, they use rhetorical kind of language, okay. So that is the second bit I was telling you, that A, you need to have vision, B, you need to be more persuasive so that other people buy into your vision. Third is, which sometimes I think stands alone, sometimes I think is deeply related to it, is actually the power of compassion. Okay. That irrespective of what others do for you, irrespective of whether they are useful to you, not useful to you, being nice and kind to people. Okay. Now that I can argue that ultimately it would lead to your being more persuasive, etc. But even without that, okay, just because we are human beings, we owe other human beings decency. Okay. And if you do that, it creates its own set of kind of, good things about you. So these were the three things, I thought if you do properly, you could be a better leader. One is, improve your power of visioning, think big. Second is, whatever you have thought, sell that idea to others. Third is being more compassionate towards other people. In fact, in the pandemic, I remember there was a hotel chap from one of our alumni who came to give the 2020 inauguration for PGP batch. He gave the talk. Typically, our inaugurations happened in the month of June, but that year, because of pandemic, it would have been maybe July or something. Now, this person, 2020 July, if you realize we were in the midst of pandemic, so he just narrated, he was founder of a hotel chain, I think Lemon Tree, if I remember correctly. So he narrated how they were coping with the pandemic. Now, actually what they did, instead of removing people, all the employees took a pay cut, right from the top to the bottom actually, because that was one way to deal with it. Remember, that was not the only way to deal with it, because often in a hierarchical organization, I often joke that responsibility sinks down to the lowest level, okay. So basically, if somebody's head has to roll, it would be the lower level heads rather than higher level heads. Here was a person, and I would not lie that now I can tell you that this is how they have post-pandemic grown 4 times. I don't know, might have. I have not checked actually. If I were better prepared for the talk, maybe I should have. But I think this idea itself that you are there for a longer run with your employees, they are good in the mind, definitely has differences in terms of rewards. Because you see, I don't know how many of you have heard of this guy called Ramcharan. Ramcharan is one of the management gurus, and he has consulted for many Fortune 500 companies. He came up with this idea called execution. What he thinks that actually it's not a big deal to have great ideas. Okay, a lot of people get great ideas. So, for example, right now, I don't know how many medicine delivery firms, online medicine delivery firms you would know of. Many, 20, 50, you can count. But then he is saying that only those people would succeed who can execute it better. And there you would have, those of you who have used medicine delivery firms, you will know that there are some, I'll not get into naming them, but there were some, you order that medicine today, they will send it to you after 7 days. If it's a fever medicine, then obviously you can't use it after 7 days. And after 7 days on top of that, you can't even return it. Okay. So you are, at some level sitting with dead kind of inventory, so to say. So how does actually this execution happen? Okay. And that is where, so what I was telling you in the beginning, why even your, because see, ultimately, any organization primarily runs through its frontline people, okay. And if they don't think that you have their, actually good at heart, they are not going to execute it well. They will do whatever they are asked to do, okay. And this, I can see the difference, okay, between people who do what they are asked to do and people who take ownership, okay. They do things as if it's their own work, okay. That will come only when they think that the management is, or leaders are compassionate. So this is the talk which I wanted to give. Let me also point out to you, ma'am, you just sit for 2 more minutes. You have been kind, so just sit for 2 more minutes. So one of the things which actually bothers me as of this point, that one of the things which she glossed over and did not tell you, I'm also a practicing poet, okay. So I have 3 books to my credit, etc. And my 4th book is whatever, it could have gone into press, but then I developed cold feet because poets always have this problems whether it's poem enough, whether they are good enough. At least I have that, okay. So what being a poet has done to me, that for me words are important, okay. What I see that all around me, people are saying anything and they don't mean that, okay. So at some level, everything means everything else. Or nothing means anything, okay. So the point, what I'm trying to point out to you, that as a leader actually, remember I was talking about credibility, how it builds your persuasive power and so on. One of the more fundamental issues today is about the authenticity, you see. That if you say something, firstly, do you understand what you mean by it? And secondly, if you understand, do others also get, because that is a simpler part, okay. That you could be a better communicator, you could, I don't know, how many of you practice in front of mirrors, you can do all that and so on and become a better communicator. But firstly, do you understand, do you mean what you are saying, okay. I see all around us, okay, all kind of leaders, corporate leaders, political leaders, even religious leaders. We are in the age of great crisis of authenticity, okay. That people don't mean what they say actually. That will lead to a tougher thing as a leader, as a manager, because remember what is happening? Your credibility is getting compromised, okay. So if people don't believe, because you see, if you ask me that do leaders have a role, they do, because just imagine right now, just do a mental count that how many organizations' products are on your body right now, okay. That number would be more than what? At least 100, You just bring in suppliers, sub-suppliers and so on. It would be more than 100, okay. Now, all these, if it's not well organized, you are going to get hit, okay. Because remember, it's not only a question of you're earning your money and, settling down in your whatever sunset apartment in, I don't know which place is your fancy, Bahama or some such place, okay. The idea is that you have to access services, products in this own world. If other organizations don't run well, ultimately as a customer, as a consumer, you are going to get hit. Even if you don't bother about being hit as a citizen, okay. So this is the idea. I do believe management is important. I do believe leadership is important. But then leaders need to think through what is the way in which they can come out of this crisis of authenticity. So you have been very kind, by and large. I mean, I'm happy that I can't see till the back, and therefore, if you yawned, I did not see you. But people who are on the first two, whatever rows, you have been very kind. You did not yawn. As a teacher, that is one of the biggest kind of fear one has. Thank you for patiently listening to me.
Thank you, sir. Could you just wait for a second? Are there any questions from the audience?
Oh yeah, there are, if there are any questions.
Yes, I believe there are.
So first of all, thank you. I think it was excellent listening to you.
So you are just on the cusp. I can't figure out whether you were listening or not listening, because that far I can't see.
You can ask me questions and I can answer that.
Sure.
Right? So, I mean, when I graduated from a B school about 20 years ago, I think we had lots of debates about leadership, whether leadership is something that's born or can be taught. And we also had a thought those days that Adolf Hitler is one of the greatest leaders because he could have people buy into his high ideas and follow him. But anyways, for today's, what you told us, you talked about transformational leadership and transactional leadership.
That's right.
I think one of the challenges many of us face here is that the stated need from a CIO is transformational leadership, but it ends up being a transactional leadership. And transactional leadership at times is not seen as a leadership. So what are your thoughts on that and how we can, move the needle from one side to the other? Thank you.
So, one is, I'll just go back to parts of my talk. One is, as I was saying, finding your own sense of purpose, okay. So what do you think as a CIO is your sense of purpose, okay? And for want of a better movie reference, because I'm not a Shah Rukh Khan fan, Pathan or no Pathan, okay, he remains bad. But anyway, you remember Swadesh, when the electricity comes, okay, and the joy which everybody has. So what is the electricity which you are helping to bring to people, okay? And that is where, I find this very educative, this 5 why business, the Korean method, keep on asking why till you can go no further. So, for example, what is the purpose of having a CIO, okay? So you will come up with something, then ask why is that needed? Why is that needed? So you will reach your purpose, okay? And I would say that that is the part of the transformation which you can bring to yourself first, okay? To see the larger picture, bigger picture. So not think in terms of machines, not think in terms of, clouds, but what does data do actually, okay? What does, information do? How does it change the organization? Next issue is, so if you understand that, next issue is about framing, okay. So framing, I don't know if you came across the work of these two gentlemen, I think you should read about them. One guy called Daniel Kahneman and another called Amos Tversky. Okay. So Kahneman became the first person to get a Nobel. He was a psychologist, so he became the first psychologist to get a Nobel. They did an experiment in 1977, in which they asked a group of people that somebody is to go for an operation. Chances of success are 90%. Should this person go for it or not? So that was one set of people. To an evenly matched group of people, they said that somebody is to go for an operation. Chances of failure are 10%. Should they go for it or not? Okay. Now, mathematically, it's all the same. But in their experiment, whenever they said chances of success, more people said, go for it. So the idea which developed from this, that how you frame whatever you say, that can actually change people's responses. So I'm saying, firstly, figure out for yourself what is the purpose, and then also see your, other colleagues, people who work with you. What is the purpose, okay? Why they are doing things, Because let me also throw another book reference at you. So this is a book called David Graeber, that is what his name, if I'm not mistaken. The book's name is The Bullshit Jobs. Okay. So he was basically an anthropologist, and he writes about these many jobs which are actually useless, if you think about it. Okay. They don't really make a difference to anybody in the world. Okay. Even if they were not there, nobody would notice. Many years back, in fact, I used to work with the National Dairy Development Board. Okay. And I was part of something called Regional Coordination Group. So we had to give Dr. Kurian from every, milk union. Right now, milk unions are fighting, in the country. So I look at it very, with a degree of amusement. But we were giving extensive data, Now, Dr. Kurian had this idea. He was saying that, let's stop this data for a month and see how many people ask questions about it. There were not too many people who were saying that you have not submitted the monthly report or you have not given it. So you get what I'm saying. So at some level, I'm also saying that this thinking through what is the purpose and communicating it to people may also, show you the areas which are, because see, everything is changing all the time. Okay. So if it is changing, I can't resist this pot shot, so it's a partly marketing presentation, but when these Adani Connex guys told you that we'll do it for 20 years, I was saying, oh my God, should I invest in a technology which is somebody's promising for 20 years? Okay. Would technology remain same? Think about how many technologies you are using right now, which they had predicted 20 years back. Okay. So technology life cycle itself is becoming shorter and shorter. That is one of the problems actually today. So anyway, that would be my long-winded answer to your short question. But thanks for your question. Okay.
Any other questions? No?
So let me frame it like this, that I'm the man standing between maybe your, evening and, you're being there. So then nobody asks.
So we'll just ask you to be on stage for 2 minutes. May I request Mr. K.O. Jathal from Ishan Technologies and Ms. Madhuri Chauhan from Adani Connex to felicitate our esteemed guest.
So kind of you.
Exceeding expectations.
7 years and 10 years.
So if you could just come to the center for a photograph, please.